with the fact that he called her Char. And I'm like, no, too much stick in the same room. I will never go into IHOP ever again and not think of this, because why do they all smell like maple syrup and pancakes and hazelnut lattes? I don't know about you, but when I smell pancakes, I don't think hot, sexy times. Besties, I am here with the most amazing news. I'm giving it 5 stars. Everyone, it's Char. Welcome back to my channel. I am here with such a fun video. I read a pretty wide array of genres. I'm not the kind of person to have like a specific genre that I stick to, but if there's a genre that stands out in my mind as something that I love, it's the subgenre of romance, which is monster romance. Monster romance also has overlap with paranormal romance or with sci-fi romance. But essentially, if he's not human, it's a monster romance in my mind. And I have a friend online. Her name is Jana. Jana has a channel here on YouTube. And Jana also has a subgenre of romance that she enjoys, which is the omegaverse. I haven't really delved into the omegaverse. If I run into it, it's because I'm reading like a shifter romance. But I think it's something that I could enjoy. And because I'm such a newbie to this, I enlisted the help of my friend Jana to give me some omegaverse recommendations. And I also gave Jana some monster romance recommendations. So Jana has sent over a video with my TBR for the week for all of the omegaverses that I'll be reading. I haven't seen this video. I don't know what is on this list, so I figured that you and I could react to it together. Let's get to it.
Hi Char, I am so excited that you asked me to do this video with you. I'm just so excited to, of course, give someone more of a background in the omegaverse.
First, I just want to say, Jana, you look so good. Makeup on point, hair on point. I love the black on you.
As we both know, this is one of my favorite romance subgenres. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I'm also so excited to dive more deeply into monster romance. I went ahead and I picked 3 omegaverse books that I think are different enough from each other so that you get a good variety of different stories and different things the omegaverse can offer you.
I love that Jana put so much thought into that. I don't think I picked very different kind of monster romances, but I love that we're getting to explore the omegaverse from different contexts.
Hope you find a new favorite in one of these. So of course I couldn't do an omegaverse recommendations without mentioning Lola and the Millionaires.
I totally saw this coming. Lola and the Millionaires is such a well-loved book. I will openly admit that I tried to read this a couple of years ago, but I just wasn't in the mood for it. It wasn't that it was a bad book. I just wasn't in the mood for it. So I'm excited to give this one a go again.
Just heartwarming, and the loving is gentle, and I think you love a good, sweet romance. And then
he's right. Jana knows I love a soft, gentle romance. I'm so excited to read this now. I know that it's very well loved. This is a great pick.
We're going to take a turn because we are now going to combine.
Where are we turning?
2 of my favorite romance subgenres, omegaverse and hockey romance. So
and the omegaverse hockey romance.
Omegaverse. I saw that you had read a Sarah Blue before and we felt the exact same way about it. So I'm hoping we will feel the exact same way about One Pucked Up Pack.
I've never heard of One Pucked Up Pack, but I'm very excited to read this, especially because after reading The Right Move, I very much think I'm entering my sports romance era.
Take a total left turn. I have chosen Havoc Killed Her Alpha.
I haven't heard of this one either.
This is more of a dark omegaverse, so I hope that
wow.
you have a good time. And this is my true shot in the dark because I don't know whether or not you'll vibe.
Jana and I did not confer before we like picked each other's books, and I love that we both picked the book that's like, I'm not sure, but I want you to read this anyway. This sounds really interesting. I typically don't read like super angsty romances, but I'm also now curious, why did she kill this man?
With this, but I did want you to get all of the flavors that omegaverse can provide. And I'm just so excited for you to dive deeper into omegaverse. And thank you so much for going on this journey with me.
And thank you for doing this video with me, Jana. Okay, that felt very weird to record because I don't record on my desktop, so it was very much like POV, you have a meeting with me. But those are the books that Jana picked. I'm so excited. They all feel so different from each other. The one I'm most curious about is that last angsty one because I genuinely want to know How did she end up at that point? I'm not sure which one I'm going to start with. I'm going to go see which ones I can get my hands on. I want to say that most of these I'd be able to find on like KU or somewhere else. So I'm going to get my hands on those. And I'm thinking I might start with this one, which is like the hockey one, because sports romance sounds very interesting to me right now, especially with the omegaverse twist. Again, thank you so much to Jana for doing this video with me. I'm super excited to read these books. I'm going to see you with my update for the first book.
This is about Charlotte. She's a year out from graduating and she goes to visit her grandmother who raised her and ends up running into not one, not two, but 3 alphas who she has an instant connection with. It seems like timing just isn't on their side. She still has to go back and finish a year of college, and they are all going to get drafted to different hockey teams.
I'm officially almost 200 pages into one pucked up pack, and I want to give you my full thought. Number one, I'm really enjoying this. So I got to like 130 pages within a couple of hours because I was just zoom flying through it. I absolutely love the 3 love interests in this story because of course it's omegaverse, so there's a pack, and this pack of 3 alphas all center around their scent match, Charlotte, who is the omega in this situation. I absolutely love the dynamics of the 3 men who are all hockey players in this story. Eli, Anders, and Michael. My personal favorite is Anders, just because Anders is such a sweetie pie, but I really love all of their dynamics and the way that they complement and contrast each other. This book is also a lot steamier than I was expecting it to be because the number of times that these people had an orgy. Something happened that I knew was going to happen. If you know omegaverse, you know exactly what's going to happen in here, and I'm really enjoying those aspects of the story. I think the sex scenes are very, very well done in here. Something that also is interesting to me, I don't necessarily have positive or negative feelings about it, I'm fairly neutral, is that the author is making these characters sound exactly their age. I think that that's a good thing because they're supposed to be like 20 years old and they read like they're 20 years old. The things that they think about and talk about and how they interact with each other is all very accurate to that. For me personally though, I don't know if that's 100% working for me because I don't particularly love young adults, nor do I particularly love new adults. This is not YA in any sense of the word. When I read, I like my characters to be a little bit older, but that's fine. The characters are the age that they're supposed to be, and they're reading like they're the age that they're supposed to be. I'm really excited to see like where this is going to go because I think at this point this is where the angst is introduced because they're about to be separated because the 3 men in the story want to be professional hockey players, and even though they have this very unique opportunity, I believe Anders says that only 4% of alphas ever find their scent match, and for all 3 of them to have the scent match is extremely rare. They still want to be professional hockey players, and for pro athletes, having a pack isn't realistic because they're not all going to get drafted onto the same team and they'll be separated across the country. And that's this point of the story that I think is going to introduce the angst. If I had a criticism for this book, it would be that the main female character has a little bit of your name syndrome-ness going on. I don't think that she has a very strong or distinct personality really in any sense of the word, and at this point in the story she just feels a little bit whiny, which makes sense because of what just happened. I don't want to call her Bella Swan because she's not Bella Swan, but I was reading Bro and the Beast. If you're not new here, you know that I've been reading this series, and there's a line that the character in here says that's like, the main female character who was originally in that story is blander than unsalted butter because it's supposed to give the reader room to self-insert. And I can't help but feel that that is what Charlotte is suffering from. The men in the story are so much more well-developed than Charlotte, and I can't help but notice that. In addition, Eli calls Charlotte Char, and I said this in my Amsterdam vlog and I will say it here. I don't particularly like that because to me it feels like self-insert again, combined with the fact that she's supposed to already be like your name self-insert, with the fact that he called her Char. And I'm like, no, too much dick in the same room. I would not want to be in that scenario. I do not need 3 dicks around me at one time. No, absolutely not. But I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. Right now, I'm getting a strong 4-star feeling, and that could change depending on how much more complexity and development Charlotte as a character gets, or if she continues to be your name. I don't even know how to start this clip. I was really enjoying this and thought I would give this like a solid 4-star up until we got to the 50% mark. Here I was thinking, cool, they're gonna go to their recruitment event. Obviously, I know they got separated. And it's gonna be the story of like all of the angst of how they navigate that. Instead, we end up in what in the Wattpad just fucking happened. I can't spoil it for you, but just know I read that and I was like, oh. And here's where the whole new adult thing is gonna really get on my nerves. Whereas before, I thought Charlotte, the other Char, was just a little bit bland. She was entertaining enough, but she was supposed to be interchangeable with like yourself if you were a petite blonde. Now I'm just annoyed with her. I know this author is trying to tackle some pretty like heavy subjects here, including grief, abandonment issues, and all of these things. I don't think they're doing it well. I think that this is such a shallow exploration of this, and at times feels like a stereotype of like what abandonment issues look like. I don't know. It's not clicking. What would have been a 4-star book is now potentially a 2-star book, depending on where this goes. The fact that she did not even tell these men what happened and they're still here wondering and calling this person because they don't know. Girl, turn your ass around and get back in therapy. But yeah, I will admit that this can also be part of my own bias because I neglected to mention that I don't like new adult and I don't like young adult. And it's because I work with this age group. And so I don't want to read about them. I am going to finish it, but I'm struggling at this point, and it makes me really, really sad that I was enjoying the first part, was going to give it 4-star, then we get to 50% to this Wattpad scene that quite honestly does not make a lot of sense to me, and now we're here, and I'm like, I hate all of you, actually, except for Anders. Anders is still my baby. So, we'll finish that, and I'll tell you what I think, and hopefully I'm singing a completely different tune, but the reason why I decided to do, like, more frequent updates is I just realized when it comes to vlogging, I like that. I like to take you on the journey of my reading experience and all of the ups and downs of reading a book and how I feel about each point. So I'm gonna finish this and I'll let you know what I think.
I must admit, bitch weasel and pussy chicken, not insults I was expecting to read in this book, but they sure did just happen. I don't even think I've heard those insults, but just a little excerpt here of my live reaction to what I just read. Ew. Oh my gosh, y'all. Okay, I'm really not trying to kick shape anyone, but she's in heat, and because she's an omega and she's in heat, you know, like her survival instincts aren't all there. Like eating and drinking water, totally secondary to being fucked. So to get her to drink water, and apparently as some kind of sexual foreplay, Michael puts water in his mouth and then spits it into her mouth so that she can drink it. No, absolutely not.
Okay, I finished One Pucked Up Pack by Sarah Blue. And before I give you my final rating, I do want to give you my complete thoughts and my full review. I have my notes here, so let's go through them together. As you all know, I was vibing with the first half of this book, so I was like, yeah, silly, goofy, good times. Until it stopped being silly, goofy, good times. This is no particular order, but just as I was reading and experiencing things, I was writing down my thoughts. My first thought was the pacing was very off. It was super stop and start, and I think the author had way too many time jumps in here to the point where it felt like we were skipping over critical parts of the relationship development and critical parts of the plot development. And so it stopped feeling like a plot and more started to feel like a series of scenes. I also think the handling of some of the issues in here, while I can respect what the author was trying to do, I felt like it was at times a little bit shallow in its understanding of how these issues present themselves in the everyday context of the people who deal with these things. It was just heavy-handed because there were times where our characters would outright say, I have abandonment issues. I left them first because I didn't want to be left. And I was like, yeah, that's what people think, but there's more nuance in that, and I never felt like we got to really explore that nuance. Often it felt like there was drama for the sake of drama. This story wanted to be angsty and had such an angsty premise that was completely undermined by all of the very over-the-top and dramatic things that were happening throughout the story. We already have a pack of fated mates and people who really love each other and want to be together and who are being separated by their careers. And that could have been an angsty enough premise had they had to explore their dynamics and how that works with the individual relationship development between Charlotte and each of the men in this pack. But we didn't get that. Instead, we got a very, very dramatic scene. While it brought some element of grief in here, I'll talk more about the handling of grief in this story. It just cut all of the tension in the story. It cut all of the angst because it started to feel like what in the Wattpad was happening. Michael and Charlotte had so many issues. Their relationship was so tense, and it should have been interesting, but really just took away from the relationship between Eli and Charlotte, and Anders and Charlotte, and Anders and Eli and Charlotte together, because Anders and Eli became their own kind of background characters. They were background characters in their own love story, and while I loved them in the first half of this book, they very much faded into the background while Charlotte and Michael had it out, which was just honestly a disservice to them because they could have been great, which is my sentiments overall. Could have been great. Charlotte would have moments where she recognized that she was just as much part of the problem as any other member of this pack, and she had a role to play in some of the things that happened, which is not to say like she was the villain, because she wasn't. There wasn't a villain. She was acting out of a place of deep grief and trauma. She would acknowledge that she had hurt these people, and she would acknowledge that she had done something wrong and that she would need to apologize, but she would never apologize. She would just throw a tantrum and be really mad that they didn't immediately figure her. And that like didn't endear me to Charlotte. Here's an example of this. She steals Michael's journal, which he very much had told her, like, it's his own private thoughts. She steals it anyway because she's mad, and then she reads it, and then she gets mad that he was mad at her in his private journal. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And her friend Piper, who I liked, called her out on that shit. It's like, you cannot get angry for violating someone else's privacy and then being upset that in their own private thoughts and in their own private space, they were working through their own anger at you. Like, that's not okay. So yeah, she would admit that she needed to take responsibility, and then she would never take responsibility. Not one. Spoiler here, so please just proceed with caution. Charlotte's mom dies. And she dies in a way that's very confusing. How does she die? I don't know, because she died and then immediately got into a car accident with Charlotte. I know it has something to do with like her medical history, but not once do you get an explanation of why she suddenly died. She died for the sake of the plot, which sounds so fucking harsh. But how am I supposed to feel when you don't explain at all like why she died? And there's no context whatsoever into what caused her death. Nor does she continue to be a relevant character throughout this, because guess what? As soon as Charlotte encounters these boys again, does grief ever come up for her again? No. Not until the final 5 pages of the story. Grief is something that Charlotte would feel so intensely. Her mother died unexpectedly, yet we have no explanation whatsoever, and no exploration of what this was like for her post her coming off her medication and her running into this pack. As soon as that's done, so is everything else. Did not like that. There was the setup here for so much angst, and I think the same exact things could have happened without all the time jumps, because we miss so much of the development of these characters and these relationships and these scenes, that when these things happen, these very dramatic things happen, these very sad things happen, you don't feel anything because you got cut out of all of the important development parts. And a little nitpicky thing, I will never go into IHOP ever again and not think of this, because why do they all smell like maple syrup and pancakes and hazelnut lattes? I don't know about you, but when I smell pancakes, I don't think hot sexy times. That was a minor thing, to each their own. The thing that really annoyed me is how whenever they were having sex, Charlotte would call all of them alpha. I'm not kidding! They would have sex and she would be like, yes, alpha. I don't know why that icked me out so bad, but it really icked me out. I think you could tell by this point, by my full review, I don't have very positive feelings about this book. I was able to finish it, and my overall feeling is that it could have been so much more, but it wasn't. And so I'm giving this 2.5 stars. I'm so sorry. I hate doing this. I wanted to love every single omegaverse in here. And please know, this means absolutely nothing. I still love Jana with my whole fucking heart. This is the book for me. And our reading tastes are differing here in this sub-genre.
Lola is a beta, which is the closest to like a regular human in the omegaverse. But there's also alphas who tend to be more physically stronger, and then omegas who tend to just be very like desirable, small, dainty, like ooh, ooh. And alphas are like obsessed with them. So as a beta, Lola always was like envious of how people felt about omegas, and she became kind of like an alpha chaser. And one night, Lola goes to the club, as you do, and she meets another beta and she becomes obsessed with him right away. But then when they go to hook up, she discovers that he is already mated to an alpha. And with her now swearing off alphas, and because of some things in her past, her wanting distance from them, that becomes something that she's not sure she can overcome. So she's getting closer to this guy while also having to confront her fears and feeling like she's never going to be enough and that she could never be like a desired part of a pack.
Hello, my darlings. I have started Lola and the Millionaires, and it is time for a confession. I had previously attempted to read Lola and the Millionaires, and I got to page 56, and then I DNF'd it. Reading it now, I'm like, why? Why did I DNF it? And you know what? I just think I wasn't in the mood for it because I am really vibing with Lola and the Millionaires. This story already feels very well developed. There are things that are happening where I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. It's just really fun. And I love all of the men in here, and I forgot like what their dynamics are. And I'm like, oh, now that's a good time. And Lola now is establishing this relationship with one of the men in the book. It's just fun times. It's fun times. I'm happy to see where this goes, and I'm really appreciating how emotionally balanced the book is. Yes, it definitely has triggering subjects and on-page descriptions of things that happened to Lola in the past. So like, please, please, please be mindful of that. But the way that the story is being told and just like the narrative itself is really interesting. It just, I can't say enough, feels very well balanced with her current reality and what she's doing to like find healing and just recover her life, but also the way that things happened in the past and how that impacts her right now. These characters feel like they have drive and they have motivations and they have desires. The character development in here is very, very strong. So I'm hoping I continue to love Lola, and I will see you when I'm 50% of the way through. I finished Lola and the Millionaires, and all I have to say is, first of all, how dare no one tell me that this book has a sequel and that the sequel is actually relevant, because book one ends on a cliffhanger. But besties, I am here with the most amazing news. I loved Lola. I loved Lola so much. I'm giving it 5 stars. And that's so exciting because I knew I could really enjoy Omegaverse, and I loved this. I love the relationship that Lola has with all of these men, but also how distinct of a character Lola herself is. What I will warn you of, though, is that Lola has a lot of sexual trauma in her past, and that can be triggering. This is something that I can be triggered by when reading, but it depends. But for this book specifically, it did really trigger me in some cases, in terms of there was a point, like I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning having a panic attack. So please just like be mindful of that. But I really, really loved Lola. I loved all of the men in this pack. They were so cute and so sweet. And if you love being spoiled, like this is the book for you. I'm very excited to see where book 2 goes, but I'm also nervous because I know that somebody else just DNF'd it. It's like, I hope that I don't do that. But I can't prioritize reading the sequel right now. I just wanted to let you know this was such a good pick. Absolutely love this. 5 stars.
It's more of a dark Omegaverse, where our Omega Havoc has lived her whole life wanting to find her scent match, which is basically like your soulmate in Omegaverse, become part of her dream pack. But you find out at the beginning of this book that Havoc ended up killing one of her scent matches. And the setup of this book is basically her having to deal with the fallout of her killing this alpha as the other alphas in this man's pack try to uncover why their soulmate killed their best friend.
Now I'm gonna move on to Havoc killed her alpha, which I'm really, 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 really nervous about. I'm worried they're gonna be alpha holes. I don't like that. There's no world in which I would ever tolerate the disrespect of a man. So I hope it doesn't get to that point, but I'm gonna go ahead and read Havoc killed her alpha and hope that I love this one and I can dip my toes a little bit into the dark romance-ness of it. It has a very intriguing plot, so I'm hoping that it's going to work. work really well for me. Besties, I am so sorry to tell you this, but I am DNFing Havoc Killed Her Alpha, which honestly was a really hard decision to make because I feel like I'm cheating in this video if I don't read all 3 of the book recommendations, but I've really tried my best to get through this book. I tried the ebook and I tried the audiobook, and while I like the audiobook better, I am DNFing this at 20% because quite honestly, this is just not the story for me. Number 1, I already knew why Havoc killed her alpha from the title alone and like the very first like prelude to the story. I knew for one of the main plot points of this book to be like the male characters figuring out why she killed their alpha. It's really obvious why she killed the alpha, and like I get that they don't want to accept that, but the fact that they're so oblivious to it, I'm like, it's very obvious why she did this. But also, I don't like any of the male characters in here. I'm really not a dark romance girly. I don't like the alpha hole. Like, I really don't. 2 of the 3 men remaining in this group are throwing out red flags left, right, and center. Things that I just cannot get on board with. And if you're a dark romance girly, this is absolutely nothing against you. I know so many people who love dark romance and who love the alpha hole type and who love that in their relationship. But for me, I just can't tolerate that in my romances. It's too much for my soft heart. So I couldn't deal with that. Like, these men were threatening her with slavery via a dark bond and just making her feel so unsafe and uncomfortable. And I understand that they're mad, obviously, that she killed their alpha, but the way to dehumanize her is too much for me. Like, they don't even see her as a person. They just see her as an omega, and really an omega they can do whatever they want with. And the only reason they want to know like why she killed their alpha is for them. It has nothing to do with her, and they don't care that they are traumatizing her even further, and I really just cannot get on board with that. Beyond that, the writing style was fine, but the author is doing this thing where there are flashbacks, and that's very hard to follow along with. If you're in the audiobook, you're not going to follow that at all because it's just dropped in here, there, and anywhere, and I'm talking even in the middle of a scene, in the middle of a sentence, you are just suddenly in the past point of view. In the ebook, the sections that are flashback are italicized, but I just don't think that's done well because it's really hard to follow along with what's present and what's past just because of how much it interrupts the flow of the story. We need to have one point of view in the present, and then we can have a flashback chapter later. And I think a book that did the flashbacks better is actually a book that was featured in this video, and that is Lola and the Millionaire. For me, this is not a Char book, and so I'm going to put this book to rest because had I continued to read this, I would have given it 1 star, and that's not the tone that I want this video to have. So I am going to wrap up this video here, and I'll cue it to outro me to do something very nice and special for the end of this. It doesn't feel good to DNF this, but DNFing this is the right choice. So we are DNFing at 19%, which is page 85. All right, besties, it's obvious that I'm still in the same spot, but we have officially come to the outro where I thought a version of me that was more put together would do it. Nope. You still get me in my pajamas because I'm not feeling great, but I want to give a huge thank you so much to Jana for participating in this, for taking the time to recommend me Omegaverse. While not everything in this video went well, I did find a new all-time favorite, and I just really appreciate getting the chance to do this video with you. It was lots of fun for me, and I've learned a little bit about the Omegaverse. I think that I could love the Omegaverse because I love the fated mate trope. So I hope that Jana had a better time in her video. She also told me that she was picking up the audiobook for I Married a Naga, and I was like, girl, that's an interesting choice because he's a snake. You tell me how much he's hissing. I can't wait to see Jana's video and find out how much he was hissing in that audiobook. And I'm very sorry that I DNF'd Havoc Killed Her Alpha. I don't love DNFing books in videos, but I equally don't think that it's fun for me to go into a book, really dislike it, and then just continue to dislike it and read it for the sake of this video. I gave it as much of a shot as I could, and ultimately this is just not the book for me. So I know I DNF'd it, but I would have preferred to DNF it rather than continue to read it and give it 1 star because my opinion was not going to change. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. Look forward to part 2 where I will be doing my own little Omegaverse research using all the things I learned from this and from Jana and the recs that she gave me. I'm excited to find my perfect Omegaverse because Lola definitely got very close to that, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye.